Welcome to Bucket List Adventures Botswana. Join us on this new and exciting episode where we took a long weekend away to visit the Khama Rhino Sanctuary. This is a beautiful rhino sanctuary dedicated to the protection and the preservation of a species that is hanging in the balance between survival and the verge of extinction. Last time I visited the sanctuary was almost 3 years ago, just before the pandemic. On that visit, it was clear that the park had seen better days concerning the upkeep of the facility and the infrastructures. But this time around, it was clear the sanctuary had entered a new phase of revival, and it was obvious that the chalets, campsite areas, and the picnic spots were in a much better condition. Waking up and starting the weekend trip early, we arrived around lunchtime, which meant we had time to take a detour route through the park, passing the first water pan to see which kind of animals were waiting for us, before we had to head back and look for our campsites. We were so lucky to have received a nice and spacious campsite that was surrounded by bush, creating a natural wind barrier, knowing that we had reports of windy and wet weather conditions predicted for this weekend. But there's nothing quite as comforting and relaxing as having the tents pitched and starting a warm welcoming campfire with good company to end the day after a long and safe road trip. The next day was our first morning waking up in the sanctuary. We woke up very excited and hopeful after hearing from one of the game rangers that the hyenas and leopards were spotted in the Pans area only a few days ago. The water pan area didn't deliver much, as it was still very cold and a bit early in the morning for the animals to take their first sip of water for the day. So we went further up into the park past the grass plains to explore the more densely bushed area in the northern parts of the park before heading back down the western side of the grass plains, giving the animals a little bit of a chance to head back down to the water before we could meet them there a little bit later. We saw this beautiful male giraffe watching those two silly wildebeest having a scuffle this early in the morning. Spotting the difference between a male and a female giraffe can easily be done by looking at the tips of their ossicles. These are the bone-like horns or stubs on the top of their heads. The male ossicones will become bald from all the neck fighting over the years, as the females would have a little patch of hair on the tips of their ossicones. It has been 12 years since I saw this old girl with her bent neck on my very first visit to the Khama Rhino Sanctuary. I was so surprised and glad to see her still strong and healthy after all these years. She was so happy scratching herself with the tip of a twig on this broken tree. I guess you don't have any other option when you develop an itch. You don't have thumbs and you're this tall. Finally reaching the northern end of the grass plains, we had the pleasure of spending some time with this herd of eland, which had a good number of large bulls and a few younger ones, measuring their strengths and perfecting their scrumming techniques for the day when it would be them battling it out for the title of the dominant male. Getting to the end of the grass plains, the road took us through a dense bit of bush that made it very hard for us to spot any animals, and it took us a little under 2 hours to head back down to the first pan where we had hoped to have seen some predators earlier that morning. Even though we didn't find any predators at the water pan, We did have our first sighting with a rhino mother and her youngster, enjoying a sip of cool water before turning around into the grass plain to continue feeding for the rest of the day. This mother would have to consume up to 60 kilograms or 120 pounds of grass a day to sustain her and her calf. It was fascinating to see this mother that would constantly turn and shield her calf away from our view, and the calf that would follow her like a shadow step by step. With a storm brewing in the distance, we decided to visit the bird's hide while we still had a bit of time. The bird hide is a cozy little hideout close to a water pool where you can slow down, relax and take in the beautiful sound of hundreds of African bird songs that is guaranteed to wash away any stresses of the busy life that we live back at home. This is an awesome spot to test your camera setup to its fullest and to get that beautiful photo for your desktop at home that you've been meaning to change for months now. This hide is completely closed off from all animals and especially the wildcats. That makes it completely safe to get lost in the viewfinder of your camera. I personally think the best time to visit would be in the morning when most of the birds fly down to wash themselves in the shallow edges of the pool. We spent just the right amount of time at the hide as it started pouring the second we got to the cars. It started raining so hard that we had no chance of starting a campfire, so we decided to have an easy night and book a dinner table at the sanctuary's restaurant to end the first full day at the Khama Rhino Sanctuary. Morning guys, it's our second morning in the Rhino Sanctuary. Last night it started raining. Luckily we pitched the tents before then. And yeah, today's going to be a nice and wet day. The whole park is going to be nice and wet. The roads are going to be wet. We'll see what we find today. Usually when it's wet like this, the animals usually hide under the shrubs and the bushes. But we'll see what we get. Even if it's just a little short, fun drive through the park. I mean, it will still be a fun day. So yeah, let's see what we can find today. After packing up and finishing our first cup of coffee with a soft drizzling rain, we started the day by visiting the memorial site of the animal-loving zoologist Elliptik, who was working as a manager at the Khama Rhino Sanctuary. He was attacked by an angry rhino bull and sadly passed away at the young age of 22 on the 12th of June 1996. At the bottom of the plaque it is written in Setswana, "One o le tsala wa rona, o re bale sentle," which means, "You are our friend, may you rest in peace." This is a beautiful testimony to the man he was to the animals of the park, as well as the people that he worked with. Enjoying a peaceful drive through the fresh and rain-soaked bush, I reached out to my brother over the two-way radio as we passed the chalet area where he was staying at, to meet up and enjoy the drive through the park together. As we reached the Pans area, we spotted one of the game rangers in the distance to our right, where he was stuck in the mud. My brother then decided to turn back and recover them while we carried on to the Pan area where we would meet up later after he had helped recover the vehicle from the mud. The Pans area was teeming with wildlife. It's as if the rain has energized the bush and the animals. The playfulness and ruckus of the horns while these impala rams were tussling over females, and the gallop of hooves was sure to attract any opportunistic scavenger that was on the prowl for a fast and easy meal. This time it was unfortunate for a family of crowned Latvians who, after a frantic attempt of distracting the enemy, had lost their battle as well as their unhatched eggs to the scavenging jackal. Soon after leaving the Pan area, we met this mother rhino and her calf, where they were grazing right next to the road. They were so relaxed and just minding their own business. By the ear markings, we had seen that this was a different mother and baby from the mother and baby that we saw the previous day, as the previous mother had a little hole in the middle of her left ear. We then pushed further up north on the eastern side of the grass plains, onto a road that was indicated on the GPS as a road that we had not yet taken on this weekend. The GPS led us to the western furthest end of the grass plains, to a little sandy road full of ups and downs, turns and bends, and even though this road was clearly being used, it felt like a little hidden path in the sanctuary that we had discovered. After a short while, we reached this opening and I saw the cutest little Steinbach peacefully grazing in the field. And while I had my camera locked on him, I spotted a dark figure in the corner of my eye. Standing under a tree was a beautiful wildebeest bull that decided to run straight at me and my vehicle. Making the call to keep filming it, it turned at the last moment and galloped past the front of the car. We drove for about 2 hours more and finally made our way back to the chalets to enjoy a late afternoon drive with the family. We were so excited because in just a few hours we would get ready for a night drive that we had booked with one of the game rangers that we had met earlier that morning. We just got our Hilux for the game drive tonight. Maybe we can find the leopards, maybe some hyenas. Soon we were on the back of the game viewer and off we went into the dark. The first animal we saw was a South African spring hare. I guess this is our version of a much smaller sized kangaroo. Next, we saw a rhino turning off into the bush. We only had a glimpse of them as the bush was so dense and overgrown where they quickly disappeared into the dark. Despite it being so cold, we were surprised when we found such a big herd of eland as well as impala resting in the open plains. We searched for almost 3 hours with no success, going back and forth between the water pans, the bush and the plains in the hopes of finding the leopards or at least the hyenas that were seen by the rangers not too long ago. Despite not seeing any predators, we had a beautiful sighting of a civil cat. Unfortunately, it was so fast that I couldn't catch it with a camera. As we turned, heading back home, right on the edge of the plain, our game ranger driver, with his trained eyes, spotted this beautiful giant eagle owl. We had an awesome time driving at night, and ending the drive with this beautiful owl was a good ending to an experience that I would always recommend and that I wouldn't easily forget. So we are back at the campsite now. Just got back from the game drive. Unfortunately we didn't see any leopards, but yeah, we saw springbuck, eland, some rhinos, and yeah, we saw a civil cat. That's what we did see, and we got a beautiful shot of an owl. So yes, we didn't see any predators, but I think it was a good night. Very cold, it was raining a little bit, but yeah, we took enough blankets. Yeah, now it's back to the campsites. Quickly take a shower, and then it is the tent. It was cold and wet waking up the last morning at the sanctuary, but we left recharged and excited to see how the bush had received a new breath of life after the well-deserved rain. While we were packing up to begin our journey back home, it seemed like this dung beetle also was ready for the road. Visiting the Rhino Sanctuary after such a long time, it was good to see that it had started a phase of renovation and preparation for the tourism that has opened up in Botswana. We left with new love for the place, and we will definitely be coming back. Thanks guys for joining in. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click that notification bell so that you're notified whenever we post another video. And then next time you can join in on the next bucket list adventures.